When Daniel and his friends first get to Babylon, they refuse to eat the fine food of the king's table. And they ask the official who's in charge of the young men in the court of Nebuchadnezzar if they can instead eat seeds for a time. And the official who's in charge of them allows them to take a test. He lets them eat seeds for a period of time and then tests to see whether they are staying healthy, whether they're well fed. And they are. They're in even better shape than the other exiles, the other young men who were in Babylonian civil service and training for the civil service. They're even healthier than those who've been eating the tasty food of the king. This looks like it might be an example of what Paul talks about when he talks about the table of demons. Paul says that if we partake of the table of the Lord, then we're committed to the table of the Lord. We're united to Jesus as our husband. And if we also indulge the table of demons, if we go to, it's speaking to the Corinthians, if they go to sacrificial feasts for other gods, then they're betraying their husband, and their husband will be provoked to jealousy. So the fact that we sit at the Lord's table commits us to sticking with the Lord's table, and also obligates us to refuse other tables. And it kind of looks like that's what's going on with Daniel and his friends. The table of Nebuchadnezzar is going to be a table of idolatry, and so they're going to refrain from that. That's plausible, but it doesn't seem to be the case for Daniel and his friends in exile. Jehoiachin, who I talked about in a previous episode in this series, Jehoiachin takes a place at the king of Babylon's table, and that's a sign of Israel's eventual restoration, the elevation of Israel among the captured kings of Israel. Within Daniel itself, we later on find that Daniel is fasting from the tasty food that he's been eating. That's the king's fare. So at some point, Daniel stopped his seed diet, his vegetable diet, and began eating the tasty food of the king. But still, he and his friends realized that there was a line that needed to be drawn. When they went into exile, they drew a line. It wasn't a permanent line. It wasn't a line between clean and unclean foods. It wasn't a line between table of demons and the table of the Lord, but it was a line, and they refused to eat the king's food for a period of time. I think there's a lesson in that adds to and enhances our understanding of what we're obligated to at the Lord's table. We're certainly obligated to avoid tables of demons. And if we sit at the Lord's table, then we can't participate in rites and ceremonies and festivals of false religions. But we also need to be very careful, as Daniel and his friends were, about sitting at other sorts of tables, which may not be idolatrous in themselves, but the fact that we sit at the Lord's table, we are royal guests of the High King of Kings. Every week when we go into the Lord's house and sit at his table, we are at that table, and that gives us a certain kind of a looseness toward any other table. It curbs our ambitions. A lot of Christians talk about wanting a place at the table, wanting to have a voice in the public square. Those are genuine, good aspirations. But the Lord's Supper teaches us that we need to be careful of those aspirations, curb those ambitions to be at the important tables of the world, because we're at the most important table there is. We're at the Lord's table every week, and we need to be cautious about the other tables that we take a seat at.